All right. Welcome back to All Cars Y'all. My name is John. It is time for another Motor Week retro review reaction. This week it is the 1991 Nissan NX2000. Now, I have chosen this one for a couple of reasons that you've probably already figured out. The first is I'm going through a series of these small little sporty coupes that we really don't have anymore. I had done some time ago a kind of a roundup of them that they had done with like the Toyota Paseo, and I think the Geostorm was in there, and the Saturn Sports Coupe. And I not too long ago did the Mazda MX-3, which was my favorite of this category. But here's the NX2000. I've been meaning to get to this one for a while because I really liked it. Wasn't quite my favorite, but I really liked it. And so I thought it was time to get this one out of the way, and we have been blessed. Motorweek has been putting a lot of really good retro reviews up recently, and I'm looking forward to digging into them. So as always, grab your beverage of choice. It is the morning here, so this is full calf coffee, and get comfortable while we take a little trip down memory lane to 1991 and what Nissan was doing.
TireRack.com, RockAuto.com, State Farm, and WeatherTech.
If there's any car company that has turned itself around in the last decade, it is Nissan. Its cars have gone from average to excellent, becoming bestsellers along the way. The Maxima has become one of the top sedans around, while the 300ZX is a sports car that any company would be proud to call its own. Even the humble Sentra and Stanza have gained a new lease on life. Now it's time for the last member of the Nissan family to be redone. This is the Pulsar NX. This year it's being retired and replaced by a new Sentra-based coupe simply called the NX.
And I've always liked the Pulsar. I thought that thing was kind of cool. You know, wedgy shape, looks vaguely Honda-ish at the front, but I liked this car. But that's not what this is about, right?
If you're wondering where the Pulsar name went, you only have to look at the new car and you'll realize that the old and new share nothing except the initials. Designed for the U.S. market as the replacement for the Pulsar NX as well as the Sentra Sport Coupe, Nissan's all-new NX2000 is a far cry from its predecessors. Indeed, straight lines are almost non-existent on the EconoSports NX. Its combination of teardrop headlights, vast hood, and flowing roofline give the car a very unique and even controversial look.
So let's talk about that styling for a second there. I think it was Car and Driver that had done a review of it back in the day, and they called it ovoid because everything was oval. We'll see some more of the styling here in a second. But overall, I always thought it was kind of cute. The lights were too small. The proportions on this car just seem a little off to me. While it's oval and they went for more of an eggy shape, they at least were trying to break free of the straight lines and the wedges, right, that they had before. And they came out with this, and I thought it was so fresh looking. The problem is, with cars like this, you need to walk kind of a fine line, I think, in terms of styling and who you appeal to. You don't need it to look too soft, or, if you'll forgive me, too feminine, and only appeal to one half of drivers. But you also don't want it to look too muscular and too in your face. And I don't think Nissan quite walked the line with this one. It ended up a little too cutesy, and parts of it just looked like the headlights just looked undersized a little bit, which is kind of a shame. But they ended up with something that, you know, here we are 30 years later, I still remember this car. It made an impression. Just don't know that I loved it, especially if I draw that comparison directly with the Mazda MX-3. I thought it was a much better proportioned car. But let's see what else they say.
Curves continue around the tail of the snappy-looking coupe with a standard spoiler and ground effects. This coupe is sure to stand out in the parking lot. There is plenty of punch to go with the NX's radical design in the form of a 2-liter 4-cylinder engine that makes 140 horsepower and 130 pound-feet of torque. It's the same 16-valve 4-cylinder power plant we've loved in Nissan Sentra SER and Infiniti G20. A 1.6-liter, 110-horsepower engine is also available for the more economy-minded sporty buyer.
Well, and I think that they might mention it that there's more than just an engine difference between the NX1600 and the NX2000. That roundup I was talking about, if I remember correctly, they had a 1600, and one of the things they talked about was not just that the engine is smaller and makes less power, but the overall setup was just softer, more comfortable. When you got to the 2000, it was a little more, I want to say harsh, maybe a little more edgy, something along those lines. The SER, the Sentra SER, was a beast of a machine. It was fantastic. It was a two-door small car that would go like heck, right? And here, instead of using the redesigned Sentra, they came up with a whole new body for it. And again, I kind of miss those days where automakers put some effort into things.
On the track, the NX2000's acceleration capabilities were revealed. 60 miles per hour was attained in 7.6 seconds, and the quarter mile ended in 16.2 seconds at 86 miles per hour. Most impressive. Power comes on strong, causing plenty of front drive torque steer in first and second gears, and continuing strongly through the rev range. At higher revs, a little vibration seeps in through the steering wheel and shifter, letting you know the engine is working hard. Our test car was equipped with a 5-speed manual transmission that had a surprisingly rubbery feel. It sometimes hung up between second and third gears, and engaging reverse often took more than one attempt as well. Clearly not up to Nissan standards. Suspension on the Sentra-based NX2000 is independent all around and beefed up over the SER for even better handling. The car is surprisingly well balanced for a front driver, with the nose always darting where it's pointed. Grippy 195/55 Potenza RE71 tires mounted on 14-inch alloy rims keep the NX on course. Push it hard in a slalom and the tail breaks loose in a smooth, controlled slide. It's a lot of fun, kind of like a tiny Mustang GT. Emergency maneuvers, however, were a little harder to deal with. The NX snaps around despite a power steering pump that can't quite keep up. But overall, balance is this car's best trait. Its designers have done a good job of producing a friendly machine that the average driver can push a bit without risking disaster.
Okay, I'm going to end there on that part. That very interesting. Well, they were a little critical there of some things. Really positive, because you know, if you're not looking for a sports car, but you're looking for something with a little bit better style, a little bit better power, a little bit more fun, everything they said really kind of nails it, right? It's not a sports car. It's based on an economy car, right? But it's fun to drive. It's forgiving. It, you know, feels like a baby Mustang. Just cool as heck. Cool as heck. Watching it through the slalom and the acceleration test, which was, I have no problems with the numbers there. I wish I could remember what the MX did. The Mazda. I don't recall where this falls relative to that one, but no problems with it whatsoever. But watching it through the slalom and watching it, everything just seems slightly misproportioned to me on the styling. I hate to come back to it, but the headlights are a little small. The wheels look a little small down the side. The wheels look small, but then the body looked really big and bubulous. It's not an unattractive car. I would say it's just a little distracting to me. And it's interesting this was designed for the American market. This strikes me as more, you know, cutesy Japanese, but it was for us. I don't know. I'm not trying to harp on it because I don't think it's an ugly car. Don't misunderstand me, please. I just don't think it ever quite hit that next level of like, wow, that's really good looking.
Along with the power to accelerate, power to stop the 2,500-pound car is also necessary. This is supplied by four-wheel disc and an optional anti-lock braking system. Braking distances from 60 miles per hour averaged a very short and stable 108 feet. Strong pedal pulse and noise were noticeable as the ABS went to work. Fade was non-existent and the pedal stayed firm. On the highway, NX Ride is firm, and its short wheelbase does let you know about bumps. EPA fuel economy ratings are 23 city, 31 highway. Expect 27 in typical driving. Like most econo sports, the NX is based on an economy sedan. Thus, it is no surprise that much of the NX's interior comes from the Sentra. There is plenty of roundness to the interior that well matches the car's exterior design cues. A driver's side airbag is standard. Trim is of high-quality plastic with a good, solid feel to controls. Analog gauges inform the driver of most engine functions, but the dash lacks an oil pressure gauge and voltmeter. A performance-oriented car should have full instrumentation. Front seats are supportive, yet a little too firm on the bottoms. Positioning is manual, with controls kept to a minimum, and a standard tilt steering column adds to driver comfort. Climate controls are standard Nissan economy style. Fan speed, temperature, fresh air, and airflow controls, all well marked and easy to reach. Small but numerous storage compartments are placed throughout the NX's snug interior, and a convenient hideaway cup holder safely holds your favorite refreshments. A 4-speaker AM/FM cassette sound system is standard. A push-button power switch makes turning the radio on or off a cinch, but some other controls are hard to adjust while driving. The rear seat is a folding bench that expands trunk room to almost 22 cubic feet. Head and legroom are insufficient for anyone but small children, and the flat seat offers no support. Removal and replacement of the optional lockable T-tops is simple and quick, but storing them in their protective bags and strapping them down in the trunk is a time-consuming project. But the semi-open air enjoyment of the NX is worth it.
Okay, so a lot to unpack there. Trying to give you longer stretches of what to watch here without me interrupting. Braking performance, excellent. I'm going to say something here at the end about Nissan back in the early 90s. Interior, you know what I'm going to say. I don't have a big problem with it. I think the interior is on the attractive side. If you keep in mind it's an economy level car, coming from an economy car, it's fine. I mean, the gauges are clear, the plastic is high quality, it's not as chopped up as some of the Americans' dashes would be at the time. I could really get finicky about that radio, or even how low the HVAC is. I would have liked to have seen it out just a little bit more, but we're nitpicking here. My only real thing is it's black on black on black, and you know I was going to say it. For a price, that's, fine. That's the way the world is. That's the way the world was. But man, would it hurt you to lighten a couple of pieces up? I mean, but you're driving this car to be looked at, not really worried about what it looks like inside. But I want to, and trunk space, okay, it's not very big. And I'm disappointed they said the headroom is only appropriate for children, but not a huge surprise there. Lay the back down, you end up with 22 cubic feet. Well, okay, you don't have a back seat anymore, but you've got a bigger trunk than most large cars. Okay, cool. But let's talk about T-tops for a minute. I want you to join me here, right? Bring back T-tops. I love T-tops. Sure, maybe they rattle, maybe they leak, maybe you've got to store them. There's a lot of reasons they went away. But dang, I miss T-tops, and I want them to come back. In fact, I did a video where I think it was a 10-year prediction in the future, and one of the things I talked about was T-tops making a comeback. I think it's an easy styling thing that manufacturers can do that would set them apart, make them stand out in a sea of boring SUVs where everything looks like it's variations of the same egg. I think little things like that, there's going to be a manufacturer that's like, I'm going to try it because I'm going to stand out for it. So if you're down with me, maybe I'll start a petition, bring back T-tops.
Prices for that enjoyment start at $11,090 for the 1.6-liter engined NX1600. Our NX2000 starts at $12,970 and comes to $15,420 with all of its options. The Geostorm GSI costs less than the NX2000, but it also lacks the power and handling capabilities of the NX. The Storm also cannot be equipped with anti-lock brakes, but it does get more miles per gallon. Topping our list of hits for the Nissan NX2000 is its excellent acceleration. We also like the sharp handling, strong brakes, and eye-catching styling. Misses are the front-drive torque steer, notchy shifter, and sparse gauges. With a curvaceous design, fine handling traits, and a low base price, the NX's bang for the buck factor is high. Nissan has again entered a strong contender in the already established niche of economy performance, ready to do battle and possibly emerge a victor.
All right, so that was super interesting, and the whole review didn't quite change my opinion of what I thought about the car. I remember liking it very much. Yes, I had a chance to drive one of these, and I think it was right beforehand, if I remember correctly, I had a chance to drive the Pulsar. Now, what I remember about the Pulsar, other than just like I like wedges, super small. I just remember it feeling small. But this was a hoot. The problem, I think, and they didn't really address it, and I wish they'd, instead of just doing the Geostorm, I wish they'd compared it with that Mazda or, whatever, something else. I wish they'd gone into a little more detail about the difference between the 1600 and the 2000. For example, when they were driving it and they said that, on the road, it's a little harsh, it's got a short wheelbase. They could have compared that with the 1600 and saying the 1600 rides a little softer. Little things like that I think would have added a lot to this review. But at the time, having driven basically all of these Econo Sport boxes, I remember loving this car, really enjoying it, but it never quite becoming that number one choice, right? Like when the Saturn was introduced, I'd rather have it just because I love Saturn and it was American. I much prefer the Mazda. I thought it was a better looking package overall. The Geostorm was cheap and harsh, but it was a hoot. It really was. So it's one of the best. And probably if we ranked all of these things, probably I'd rank it somewhere around number 2 if I took out the styling. It's memorable styling, but I don't love it styling. And I have not changed my opinion after watching this, that everything just seems a little too curved, too small, almost dainty, but then the tail lights aren't. I love the rear end of this car. Its big downfall, in spite of the value proposition it offered, was it was not better than the SER. Now, they took a two-door Sentra and they made it that performance package, and the SER was awesome sauce. And then they came out with this, and they gave it this daintier styling. It took the place of the SER, but it wasn't really a better car. You ended up with less space interior, and you ended up with just everything. It was more compromised to get to this styling. But you bought cars like this to stand out from their economy car roots. And I miss things like this. I miss auto manufacturers having fun, honestly. And I want to say that, Nissan has had kind of a mixed history. They mentioned it at the beginning of a lot of their cars were good but boring, and then they became really, really good. There is an argument that somewhere around the late 80s, somewhere in there, I'm not sure where I draw the line, Nissan arguably was the best of the Japanese manufacturers. They were doing cool cars. They were doing advanced technology. They were reliable. While you've got Toyota over there and you've got Honda over there, Nissan in some ways kind of, to me anyway, defined the Japanese car experience. They were just doing kind of everything. I didn't like the Stanza. I never did. But then they replaced it with the Ultima, which I really, really didn't like for a while. But the Sentra was always great. The Maxima was amazing for a while. And Nissan really did some amazing things. And then, they nearly went bankrupt and they were saved by Renault. And now we have what we have today, which is, while I've had very good experience with Nissans, almost anywhere else you go online will talk about how the quality's not there. They are disposable products. They're not the engineering excellence that Nissan once strived for. And what's cool is this car was kind of in that period, right? Where they were like, let's do it. Let's go be excellent. And while this car isn't quite number one for me, it is a memorable car from 30 years ago, and I am so happy to have seen this one again. Didn't change my opinion on where I'd rank it relative to like that Mazda, but what a fun one. So as always, thanks for watching, and if you have any personal experience with one of these, if you owned one, let us know how it went, how it held up, and well, bluntly, how much you miss it. Thanks for being here, y'all.